Okay, we're recording. It's cool. And I'm gonna put your picture up on the little square here, like if you're some FBI informant or skin. Nomás just the voice. Just the voice.
All right. Very
The
cool.
hablas español, ¿no?
Sí,
Yeah.
sí.
Native speaker or like
Uh,
native or pocho como yo?
maybe half and half. I mean,
Oh,
I call myself fluent. I grew up learn speaking Spanish with my family. I am not as much speaking it
mhm,
now, so it's like not perfect. But see, I
mhm,
understand it. I interact with my family, and
mhm,
anytime I have a chance, I think being back in California, I get
mhm.
to hear it more because in where I am in Europe, there's not a lot of
Yeah.
you get some Spain
Mhm.
people dropping into our we're in a little town in Belgium,
Yeah.
but I don't really get to talk. It's a totally different language there. So being back in California, I'm like any opportunity I'm at the store and someone I hear the accent, I'm like, "Hablas español?" And
Yeah.
they're like, "Yes." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, cool."
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So you were born and raised in Cali or just raised in Cali?
Yes, born and raised in California.
The San Fernando Valley,
S
LA, like
Northern California, San
Northern California.
Jose. Yes, I'm a
Gotcha.
Bay
Tacos.
Area girl, but I think
Yeah.
I'm an LA girl by heart for sure. I did a
Wait,
lot
so
of my
so
school.
so what's the San Fernando Valley? Where is that's not San Jose? That's San
No,
Fernando.
San Fernando Valley is actually technically in Los Angeles County.
Ah,
Um,
days. I'm over here set tripping. I'm calling you acá, and you're like, no, 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 San Jose. It's San Jose.
yeah, but
uh,
I did my undergraduate degree in the valley, so in San
okay,
Fernando Valley, which is I went to Cal State Northridge, which is in San Fernando Valley.
and
So,
that's
like,
LA County.
yeah. So I
Wow.
essentially just like I said, I'm a LA girl by heart, I think. Born in the Bay, but LA by heart.
Is there a huge difference at the point at the risk of sound very naive, like is there a huge difference apart from the I mean all I know as a true non-Californian, all I know is about gang coach LA and the glorification
Mhm,
that comes with all of that mess.
mhm,
So that's all I associate with red and blue, all that mess that comes with it. But apart
sure.
from that, is there a huge difference when it comes to like the different culture as far as being Mexican in California, in Northern California, Southern California?
That's a good, that's an excellent question, I guess, when you
Mhm,
tap into the cultural aspect. I think
mhm.
that it depends, like, where in LA, right? Because LA is huge.
Yeah.
Overall, I think as a youth growing up in California and then, living in the Bay and then going to school in LA and kinda going back and forth,
Mhm,
I do see that I saw the difference. It's just a totally different vibe. I think the Bay Area up north, Northern California,
mhm,
is very relaxed. Kinda like the hyphy movement when I was in high school, it's just, like, very chill, and then,
mhm,
you go to LA and you do have, like, a totally different fast-paced, like, now
mhm.
it's very Instagram, but you
Influencers.
do have
Yeah.
yeah, totally, but you also
Mhm.
have, to your point, like, you have the gangs,
Oh, yeah.
the certain areas there where,
Mhm,
I lived in South Central for a little bit.
mhm.
I guess, we didn't realize at the time it was being gentrified, so I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm part of the problem." But
Mhm.
um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's also really cool when as a Latina, going to certain places in LA, you have
Mhm.
the street food, you have the street tacos. You don't
Yes.
have that here in the Bay Area. You have, like,
Really?
hot
Okay.
dog stands.
Huh.
They're really popular now, like, outside in
Okay.
downtown. They have I don't
Yep.
actually know what they're called, but, in LA, there are, like, everywhere you go, maybe not everywhere, but most places, there are, taco stands. They're really just
Yep.
they're out there, and I think
Mhm.
there's a really cool Latino vibe in SoCal.
Yeah, 'cause, Northern California, that's more agricultural, right? That's like farm, like country, I guess. That's more like is that the vibe you get? I mean, obviously, LA is the big city. Is that kinda like the separation there? It's
A
more
little
like kind
bit.
of, country?
It's close. So I
Mhm.
think the way to break it down for, like, non-Californians,
Yeah, me. Yeah.
curious,
Yeah, yeah,
happy
yeah.
to, Cali native.
Mhm.
The Northern California is, like, it's very tech. There's a
Okay.
lot of, there's over the years, it has grown exponentially, but Silicon Valley really has been Silicon Valley for many, many
Mhm,
years. So that has been just, like, the really chill vibe up here, very, work
mhm,
driven. And so then when you start going down towards Los Angeles, you hit Central California, and that's really
mhm.
the breadbasket. That's where you have all the
That's
farms
where I'm
that you
confusing. That's
Yeah.
I'm confusing northern for central. 'Cause isn't
Yes.
central literally where it's like a little, like, curbs like that, right? Like that? That's
Yep.
like the central that's
Yep.
what I'm confusing. That's what the lettuce bowl, salad bowl? I had someone,
Mhm. Mhm.
recently that was from there. That's what I'm confusing you for. Because with you for a a Floridian, a non-Californian, you have to tell me San Francisco, Simi Valley, and that's
Yes.
that's that's how I'm gonna remember Northern California, because
Right.
I keep trying to put you in in the agricultural and you're like, "I'm not from there, dawg, like, don't stop trying to, fetch is not gonna happen, I'm not from there." So
Yeah.
that's funny because, yeah, San Francisco, that's how I think about it, Northern California. So that's like
Yes.
Oakland, like that area around there?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, so
Okay.
San Francisco's
Okay.
is just a skip for me. I'm essentially in Silicon Valley, so this is, San Jose is at the
Mm,
bottom of the bay, and then when
okay.
once you start heading south, you'll start hitting Central California, and then you keep going,
Mm,
and then you hit LA.
yeah, I got you. I got you. Oh,
Yeah, we
wow.
haven't even really touched San Diego, and that's, like, way down there, so
Because about San Diego,
California's
right?
really big.
Nah, nah, shout out to San Diego. Nah. No, but, yeah, my family is actually in, South shout outs to them.
Oh, very cool.
They're the
Very
ones that
cool.
I went to go visit. Time flies, man, but I definitely gotta go back, man. California or LA rather, sorry, I
Mhm.
keep putting LA and California. It's like someone
Yeah,
coming to
it's
Florida and saying
totally
Miami,
natural.
and, like, Miami has not my part of Florida is nothing like Miami, but it's like someone coming down here and be like, "Miami, Florida."
Right.
No, no, no. But LA, man, LA, it was such a vibe, and it was just a beautiful thing to see. Our people, like the influence, the culture, the food, the
Mhm.
art, all these things. It was a cornucopia of like feeling very, it's just it spoke to me because obviously when we go to Mexico, or when I go to Mexico, I don't know about you, but when I go to Mexico, not so much recently, but when I was younger, because Spanish did improve some, but definitely much better than when I was younger. But when I was younger, hablaba bien mucho, and
Mhm.
it was like, "You're not from here, dog. Like, we're not accepting you. Like, we're rocking with you 'cause you're our family, but you're kind of an outsider." And then you
Mhm.
would come back to the States, and it's like, "You're an outsider over here too," So it was always like
Yeah.
always like a little, a seesaw effect.
Mhm.
And one prime example that I can never forget with my uncle, when I was younger in Mexico, we were gonna go carpooling somewhere, and I was trying to tell my little brother to get on my knees and to sit on my lap, so we can go to wherever we're going to like a pool or something. And I remember I was trying to impress my uncle with my Spanish, and I told my brother or maybe my cousin, doesn't matter, but I told him, "Súbete a mis nalgas." I said instead of piernas, and my uncle started laughing. He's like, "Dog," he's like, "Fam,
We're
fam,
gonna, like,
fam,
keep
fam."
working on it.
Like, fam, he's like, "Yo, that's your behind. Like, what are you talking like, dog?" And I remember that, and like he never brings it up, but in my head, every time I see him, he thinks about that. In my head, I'm manifesting that he's remembering that very awkward moment that I had, right? And that's Mexico for you, man. But the last time I went to Mexico was actually Chichen Itza, but
Okay, cool.
it was a tourist experience. I didn't feel like I
Mhm.
went to the actual Mexico because we're from Michoacan,
Okay,
and
cool.
I didn't feel like I went to Mexico. It felt very touristy because we were like on a
Mhm.
resort, and then
Mhm.
we did like touristy things because I went with my ex partner. She was from Austria, and I went
Oh,
with her.
nice.
So we were just doing our tourist thing, and it was cool, but it still wasn't Mexico. So as far as going to
Mhm.
Mexico, I think it's been 2004, 10 years. I think, yeah, it's already 2024. It's been 10 years, but uh, as far as you go, so you for your work, like what I think I even told you this when I sent you the message. I was like, yo, I have no idea what that is, but I'm down. So how do you pronounce it? Your
Y
degree in with the K word. How do you pronounce that?
Yes, it is a tongue twister, absolutely. It's a kinesiology.
Kinesiology.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. And
Kinesiology. Mhm.
and that's the study of from what I read, it's like you're assisting with people going into basically easing into aging, right? Is that kind of, can you kind of break it down a bit for me, like
Of
people
course.
who are aging, or like what is that for?
Yes, so kinesiology is a general, like, it's a really fancy science term for the study of human body movement, and
Hmm.
essentially what I have built over time and what I decided to do with my life is becoming a geriatric kinesiologist, which is a fancy word for, I essentially can't call myself a physical therapist because I'm not, quote, licensed, but I my
Mhm,
whole degree is essentially we'll call it pre-physical therapy.
mhm,
So if I had continued on to get my doctorate of physical therapist, and I can call
mhm,
myself a physical therapist, but I basically do everything. It's like a personal trainer on steroids. So
mm,
I do, I've done physical therapy, I do personal training, I've done exercise classes at assisted living homes, but the geriatric part for me was the most important because what I saw
mm,
over time is that, we have like, we're young, everyone wants to get in shape and that's great. We really focus on
mm,
kids, we really focus on youth and in maintaining our health as young adults and adults. But no one was
mhm.
ever really targeting the senior community. No one was
Yep.
really targeting the elderly. So what my purpose on this planet is to really help people as they're aging, whether that's my parents, my grandparents.
Mhm.
Um, I was really close to my abuelito. I grew up with
Yeah.
him, my grandfather, and yeah, I think he really was like the key to my life. I sometimes when he passed, I thought, man, I almost feel like his purpose in his life was to be in my life. So then now I can kind of carry that on and I can help
Mhm.
more people, more people like him.
So specifically, like when you're looking at, like you said, that is true. There is a neglect there because one personal thing that I can think about, and maybe this isn't even related to what you're dealing with. Obviously, you're dealing with a more scientific world, but one example, there was a gym, and there was a gym that a local gym, and they closed down, and obviously I was pissed off by it because it was my gym and I had just paid for a year membership, whatever.
Mm,
But it closed down, and what did suck, apart from my personal inconvenience, was seeing these seniors who would go there because there was a program called the Silver Sneakers program.
mhm, mhm,
And I mean, obviously, it was a community of people, and for them, that was their, it was their community at the gym, and also they would, get their exercise in, and they had instructors that knew how to work with them, knew the limitations of their bodies because they were senior citizens. And to see that now this program was stripped, and this was like a hometown kind of gym that had that hometown feel. And
mhm,
the older I get, the more I long for this kind of communal feel, right? Like, basically, big chain gyms, like they're cool for the convenience of it because I do work out early in the morning. I can go in to get my stuff done because it's open 24/7. But as far as that communal aspect that we as humans need, it's becoming more and more non-existent. Like, for example, in this
mhm,
example, that gym closed, and the Silver Sneakers program, it closed with it. And now
mhm,
these senior citizens had to go to Platinum Fitness gyms
mhm.
and all these other things that are just very generic, that do not offer that personal communal care for senior citizens. And that's
Yeah.
something that it really got my attention. It's messed up. So
Mhm,
I really appreciate what you're saying about, your efforts going towards these people that have become marginalized. And like you said, we kind of forget about, like,
mhm,
once you're past 50, it's like, okay, you're kind of on your own, and it's kind of like,
mhm.
just go over there. And correct me if I'm wrong, with physical therapy, that's more of a reactive, whereas what you're trying to do is proactive.
Mhm,
Okay.
absolutely. It's a
Okay.
bit of both, but to your
Mm,
point, and I'm like, it's always really refreshing when I have conversations with people like yourself where there's a very small percentage of people actually being aware of like what you saw with the gym and
mm,
seeing the, elders. I do think there's a lot of culture that plays into that to like if you grew up in a cultural community, a
mm.
cultural family, we value our elders
Yeah.
as I'm Mexican, so I can say
Yep.
that for the Mexicans. But um, I to your point, it is really sad.
Mm,
The older you get, we really do. I mean, as humans, we long for social connection. We long for
mhm,
belonging. Excuse me. So they have these communities, and then to your point, there's all these corporate gyms. But when you're an older adult, I mean, I see
yeah.
it with my father now. My dad just came back from the gym on the weekend and was like, I'm probably like 2 left out of all the guys I grew up with going to the gym. They were in the
Yeah.
the Arnold days of bodybuilders,
Mhm,
and now he's like, it's just like a lot of young kids, and I don't really feel comfortable there anymore.
mhm,
And it's sad. It really is sad because I think we really have to put ourselves in that place of you go there, you're used to your routine, the machines, and then,
yeah.
suddenly it's gone. You don't have the Silver Sneakers program gets
Yep.
defunded, they don't have it,
Mhm,
And then they have to go, yeah, to your point, Planet Fitness 24 hours, where the I mean, gym culture is its own culture, right? And it's a lot of
Mhm.
youth.
Yep.
And I mean, I myself was there when I was younger in college, but
Mhm.
it also lacks, I feel, when you're at a certain young age that yeah, I mean, we all feel like we're riding high on the world, right? And so it's like, "Hey, Mr. Old Man, can you get off the thing? I need to, like, bench now."
Mm.
And so you don't have this safe environment for them anymore, and a lot of the machines are not set up
Mhm.
for, an older adult or someone with limited mobility. So that's the
Yep.
hardest part is where I think personally it would be so nice to see more gyms
Mhm.
open up, like adapted gyms for older adults, for people with
Mm.
disabilities, for people with limitations, and kinda creating that safe environment where they can come and be like, "Hey, okay, I can work out with other people my age," or and not feel like I'm competing with a 23-year-old or
Yeah.
like a 16-year-old trying to enter bodybuilding. It's just like
Mm.
the more that I age too, I see it. So I think it's really cool again, like commending you for seeing that and talking about it because most people would just overlook it and be like, all right, well, gym closed.
Yeah,
Good luck.
sucks for you, boomer. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and something obviously gym culture within itself, it's very toxic, and it's something that I get into a lot of arguments on Instagram and stuff like that. And for saying them what I think is reasonable, for having reasonable takes or considerate takes, I often get called a soy boy. And
Mm,
from other gym goers, I guess other people, self alpha males like that, I get called a beta or like a soy boy. And it's something that's very toxic because another thing you see with for example, when New Year's comes around, you always see this
mhm,
influx in the gym
mhm.
community when people are recording people who aren't directly instead of helping them out and
Yeah.
maybe assisting them. They rather record them and really whine or something
Mhm,
or just make fun of them or brag or blog about how they're inconvenienced because there's an influx of people that are at the gym at for
yeah,
New Year's or something like that for resolution.
of
So that's
course.
something that I see. And for me, like I get called a boomer by my siblings in a joking way because I do talk to people
Mhm.
like grocery store, anywhere, especially if I'm with my little sister. I personally feel like it's my obligation to embarrass her. So I go out of my way to talk to people a lot, and she'll be like, "Well, why?" It's like I'm just talking, I'm just in a conversation. It's like,
Mhm,
and I'm becoming older now. I'm not gonna say I turned 32, but I left 31 to make it sound
mhm,
a bit more youthful.
mhm.
And so I'm becoming that age where it's like I want to talk to people, want to conversate with, and I traveled extensively, so it's something that anywhere I go, I want to try to talk to people. I have golden retriever energy, I guess you can call it.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
something I see with older people, like I said, with the Silver Sneakers program, where they don't have that sense of community anymore. I see that things like this. Do you feel it? Is there a way to get it back? Because we're all gonna get there eventually.
mhm,
I don't know why these people are joking to us that they're gonna be young forever. We're all gonna get there, but we need these mobility kind of considerations. So like, how do you get that back? Is it something in the health system that has to be tweaked? Obviously, that's a whole nother animal in the U.S. The healthcare
mhm,
system, getting these things treated through healthcare, getting a healthcare provider to approve for physical therapy or coaching, all these things, right? Because even the Silver Sneakers program, it was cool because it was provided through the provider of like healthcare. It was like a free
mhm,
thing.
mhm.
It was cool. Just show up and do your thing. So how do we get there? Because we're all gonna age. We're all gonna be that person one. Let's not lie to ourselves. So
Absolutely.
how do you I don't know, how do we get to a place where that's something that people consider?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and I think that for me, I mean, the healthcare fiasco is like a whole can of worms.
Yeah.
I think Silver Sneakers has been a great program, and you have like AARP, and you
Mm,
have what I found in my journey. I mean, I had launched a startup a couple years ago that I was desperately trying my best to get into health insurance so that it was covered because the most common
mhm.
question with older adults is like, "Hey, is it covered by my insurance?"
Yep.
Which is valid. I mean, here in the United States, that's really the only it just again, I can go on a whole topic about that. It just sucks because insurance is health insurance in the United States is privatized, which
Mhm,
means, you have to pay out of pocket, and then Medicare has these benefits, but if you want them, you have to pay extra, and so it's just
mhm,
not really fair. It's not provided. And so it's hard to find those programs. You really have to dig depending on the insurance, if it covers it, if it doesn't, do you qualify? And so to answer your question, I think that what I'm finding is that in my experience caring for my grandfather and like learning that whole system and trying to find, I mean, I myself, again, because I was a kinesiologist, I'm like, "Hey, let's
Mm,
exercise. I can teach you a class, I can keep you mobile, let me stretch you."
mm.
But I coined the term, the closeness paradox, which I think a lot of people mostly experience. When you're too close to someone, they won't listen to you. So you're like, "Hey, don't eat that. It's not good for you."
Mm.
And then they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, just one more bite, right? No, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna listen to you."
Yeah.
And then,
Mm.
I don't know, some random stranger or a friend says the same exact thing to the same
Yes.
person, and they're like, "Oh my god, they said that carbs were bad." I'm like, "Really?
So
I've
you
been
said
telling
it's
you
the
this."
closeness paradox.
I call it the
Wow.
closeness
What
paradox.
instead of taking your word for it more because you know them, it's the opposite. Más como
Exactly.
relajo, like, this guy
Uh-huh.
is sad,
Yeah,
but if
it's
someone
a
else says it,
resistance.
like, "Oh, that's serious," 'cause that's person a stranger, that's more efficient. That's so true.
Exactly, exactly, and so I, was like, "Okay, you know what? I can't teach him, I can't do like,
Mm,
he my grandfather was actually great, he would cooperate here and there.
mm.
My parents, on the other hand, they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, okay," and I'm
Yeah,
like,
you're our
You know
daughter,
I went
yeah.
to school, right? Like, this is what I'm
Yeah,
certified in," and then they get
yeah,
PT, and they're like, "Oh my god, I went to physical therapy, and I should have listened to you this whole time." I'm like, "Ya
mm,
te dije, but thanks."
yeah, yeah,
So I think, again, going back to the question is, while I think out of pocket training or prevention or some kind of care, like a dietary plan, whatever the need is more expensive than finding it through the healthcare provider. I do feel that
mhm,
it's worth it because you're gonna get that direct service,
mhm,
and you know what you're paying for. It's consistent.
mhm,
Um, I think, well, not I think, my experience is elders really, really look forward to their schedule. So if you have a
mm,
personal training session like the Silver Sneakers program, when that
mhm,
goes, they're devastated. They don't
mhm.
have much that they look forward to every little thing.
Yep.
Just kinda like us, we're
Yes.
like, "Okay, yeah, okay, okay, I
Yes.
miss it, fine." But for an older
Mm,
adult, they really look forward to things, so I commit to,
mm.
like, I cannot cancel all my clients, and if I do have to leave or if I move, I'm telling them in advance because it really breaks their heart, and then they need more time to adjust and find a new trainer, and,
Yep.
um, so I think to the point, healthcare programs, I do hope that more of them are gonna be popping up.
Mhm,
Like I said, I ended up kinda transitioning out of the startup that I was doing because I couldn't
mhm,
get in. I think getting in really requires a lot of capital,
mhm,
and it depends on the health insurance and etcetera. But
mhm.
so now what I'm doing is, I'm back to kinda just doing private work,
Okay.
and from my perspective is, like, you really just do get what you're paying for.
Mhm,
You can talk to the trainer, and there's no
mhm.
loops with the healthcare of like, "Oh, well, it didn't meet your
Yeah.
deductible, and now you have to do this," and
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole paper trail of, like, issues and like you say, you don't get that personal touch because 'cause I'm going back to and not to beat up on Planet Fitness, but basically any generic big name gym, you get some teenager working the counter who, they're just working their 9 to 5. And for Nature's Way, which is the gym when before they ripped us off our money, they were a good neighborhood gym. The owner talked to imagine how vital that you're seriously going in there that maybe, I don't know, they had a question about something or they wanted to try something. Whereas approaching a teenager that's on his phone that doesn't interact with you,
Mhm.
that's a bit more intimidating. And like old people, they don't want to bother because they feel like they're already bothering just by being there.
Mhm.
So it's something
Mhm.
where it's like no quieren hacer la molesta. Like
Sí.
it's something that like even my father tells me sometimes like when he needs me to do something, he'll tell me like ahead of time. He's like, "Hey, I'm gonna need you to do this. Do it. Can you do this for me today so I don't bother you tomorrow?" Like he says, "Bother para que no te esté molestando tomorrow." And it's like, bro, just tell me. Like if you need me to do something, just tell me. Like it's like, but in his mind, it's a bother, right? Because it's they're so it's this thing when it comes to Mexican parents, at least from my experience, it's this independence, right?
Mhm.
And to them, it's like almost it's like dignifying if they ask for help, right? It's
Absolutely.
it's hard to break that, and he was raised hard. He was raised hard, back in the old country.
Mhm.
So for him,
Mhm.
it's hard to break that thing of like, help me with this, or can you help me with this? And it's
Yeah.
something that I see that, he's not getting any younger.
Mhm.
Nobody's getting any younger. So it's something that when you get older, you have to look into it and you have to look for services like the ones that you provide, and
Yeah.
that's something that's very unique. And I mean, I can't even. I can't even pronounce your title, but I've never met someone in that field of work. So that's something to me that's it's a very noble cause, and it's
Thank
something
you.
that very unique. But like, how does it work? So someone contacts you and you come to their house like for personal treatment or a consultation, or how does that work?
Yes. So it's first, thank you very much. Um,
No, what
I
is
really,
earned?
I
What is
really
earned? Well
appreciate that.
earned. You earned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, and I feel the same, I relate to what you were just saying because I see my parents age too, and something that I'm finding, again, kinda tying into the closeness paradox, and this goes
Mhm,
leading into this question of how it works, is we really want the best for our parents, we want the best for our grandparents, and so, we can say, "Hey, I know someone who can help,"
mhm,
and then just maybe setting up the appointment yourself or joining the meeting because the if we push it doesn't work, right? Like
mhm,
as a child and we push like hey,
mhm,
do this trainer, contact them, it just doesn't work because again,
mhm.
closeness paradox and be like
Yep.
no.
Yeah.
So essentially what happens is, yes, I have an initial consultation. I can answer any questions or what are the needs, or we can just jump straight into a session. I
Mhm,
used to do in person. Right now because I have moved to Europe.
mhm,
It's actually been much all remote. So
mhm,
we can really do it's COVID really helped that transition. And
mhm,
it's great because I can help more people at the same time.
mhm,
So I don't have to, I'm not limited to one place. I can help someone
mhm.
in Florida. I can help someone in California, Canada. The time we work on the time changes,
Yep.
but it's really great because what I love to do is I'm very creative with my sessions
Mhm,
and you don't need equipment. We can work
mhm,
with what you have at the home. Whether you need strength training, fall prevention, balance training, stretching, maybe
mhm,
just even a little bit of breathing practices. It's just
mhm,
dependent on the need of the individual, but
mhm,
it's all very casual, and again, the focus is prevention and rehabilitation. So most of
mhm,
the time it's a fall happens and the loved one is concerned of a fall happening again or
mhm,
not knowing if the house is set up for them, so I can kind of guide the caregiver or guide a
mhm,
child of a loved one, excuse me, of an older adult. I can
mhm,
talk to the family to say, hey, these are some things you need to look out for. This is where you
mhm,
can find some resources. And yeah, so it's really just all in the comfort of someone's
mhm.
home,
Do you
virtually.
feel like your cultural background, does that influence and, like, help bolster your relationships? Like, do you have certain clientele that maybe they're intimidated to begin with, but you can relate to them because of their cultural background?
Definitely,
Mhm,
definitely. I think I've had a really great, very fortunate experience of having a variety of different
mhm,
cultures that I've worked with. And I think simply at the end of the day, because I care, people really
mhm,
feel that. My
mhm,
my mission isn't to like make a bunch of money and like be
mhm,
the best trainer in the world. For me, it's really like, how can I help you? How I
mhm,
know the progression from here to the end. I've
mhm,
witnessed it with my grandfather, my grandmother. I was the primary caregiver for him. And
mhm.
I want to make, as we have so many people exponentially aging every day. Like we all know the booming community is booming.
Yeah, yeah.
We're not set up for it. And so I've
Mhm,
been talking to a lot more people just kind of in passing of like, well, my dad's got sick, or, now my mom isn't at home and I'm not there and I don't know what to do. I'm so far. And
mhm,
these are experiences where you just most of the time are not prepared. And
mhm,
so because I've been unfortunately and fortunately in both situations of like I anticipated my grandfather
mhm,
aging and then I had an unexpected tragedy. I have this professional and this personal aspect
mhm,
to now give back to people who have never been in the experience or are like, I am so scared. I don't know what to do. I have a family of my own. I'm stressed out.
mhm,
And, again, the resources from the health providers aren't always intuitive or they're not
mhm.
readily available or people just don't even know where to look. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where my mission is to come in to help people.
Mhm.
It's like don't be afraid to ask me questions because I'm here to that's like why I'm here.
Of course, of course. I know. What's your grandfather's name? Because you can mention him. I'm curious. His
Yeah,
name.
his name was Miguel. Um,
Miguel. Okay.
yeah, we
Don
called him
Miguel.
Pop.
Pop.
Yeah. Pop, yeah.
Pop. OG.
He's from
OG. Mhm.
Pop the OG, yeah, he was from a small little town outside of Guadalajara,
Guadalajara.
Atenquito.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that where your family's from too, or did he move from there?
Yes, so my family, half Jalisco, half Michoacan, and then they both sides
Okay.
of both grandparents immigrated, many, 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 many moons ago, and yeah,
Many
my
moons ago.
parents
I was
met
about to say
here.
that. I was about to you're corny like I am. I was about to say many moons ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. What part of Michoacan?
I
Mhm.
don't remember the real name, but I think
Mm.
it's called La Barucha. That's all I know. It's a small little pueblito too.
Probably
Yeah,
northern Michoacan. Probably close to.
it's possible. I don't know. That's all I
It's
know is I
possible.
just said the general, like, states,
That's
and
the
that's it.
best response for everything. It's possible. It's possible because it is
Yes.
possible.
Yes.
Yeah. No, but going back to going back to the healthcare, do you feel like it's skewed? Because I mean, is it skewed towards like because we see the healthcare in America, it's treat but don't cure, essentially.
Mhm.
Is it kind of skewed that way? Is it kind of like, hey, whatever happens, and then once you already are in a position where you need desperate help, that's when we pay attention? Is it kind of skewed that way? Like, do they have to go out of the way to look for treatment like the one you offer? Like, or is like the healthcare system is it skewed more about like, okay, whatever happens, but once you already need the help, that's when we pay attention, or is it not? Is that a
Mm.
different business model when it comes to that kind of treatment?
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. It's a really good question you're presenting.
Hmm.
I think it might, I kind of feel maybe 50-50. I think most of
Mhm,
the time it just depends on the age range of an older adult, right? An
mhm,
elderly, what are their conditions? Like, do they
mhm,
have any chronic conditions? Do they have
mhm,
any illnesses? What I see often is that people don't really, an older adult, or even me, I think just humans, period, don't think, especially
mhm,
as we get older, including myself, is people don't really think they need help
mhm,
until something really happens, and then even then they're still stubborn, right? So
mhm.
I it's not really until there's a hospitalization, there's a
Or a
fall,
fall, yeah.
or
That's a real
something.
big one. That's a big one, the
Yeah,
fall, right? Yeah.
falls are really, really important. I tell
Mhm,
my clients and people all the time that I work with is that even if it's a small fall, that person needs to get
mm,
checked out, especially if they're
yeah,
frail or they're just someone doesn't, 55
mhm,
and up, 65 and up, especially if you maybe think they hit their head. But
mm,
regardless, I mean, a fall for an elder is really, really
yeah,
dangerous. And
yep,
so
mhm,
most people are like, "Oh, they just fell, they put a Band-Aid on it, they didn't hit their head, they're fine." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, typically if an older adult falls and they hit their head, or they almost hit their head, or just, it's a pretty nasty fall,
mhm,
it's kind of a downhill spiral from there." So, I'm
yeah,
not, like, freaking anyone out, but I'm just saying
mhm,
that if there's a fall, definitely take them in ASAP,
mhm,
because that's an indicator that something's happening, whether it's neurological or there's a physical weakness. And
mhm.
if they did hit their head, there's a time limit that comes past that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
But
so it's
also even uh-huh.
go ahead.
But also, even if they don't hit their head, anything that hits, I mean, if you're an older person, the body's frail, right? Even if they try to stop
Mhm,
themselves, like their hand, their elbow, the collarbone, the hip, anything, right? Anything
mhm.
that hits, I mean, something's gonna hit, right? So
Yeah,
either way, there's gonna be some damage. That's something that is overlooked. It's overlooked because falling it is I work in landscaping and in Florida, and we have a lot of like retirees, like older, like senior citizens, and our customers. That's like our client base in this town next to ours. And one customer, like she fell, and then she needed to have like a nurse there. She's been there for a couple months now, and
mhm,
I've noticed it. I was like, yo, it's been months, like, and she's still recovering, because it's something that, and mind you, it's not like a second story home. She fell, probably, from standing up, falling down, right? That's how high she
mhm,
fell. She's a
mhm,
short lady, so maybe 4 feet, right? She fell over 4 feet, and she needs assistance for months, and she's still
mhm.
on her walker. And it's something that is just like, wow, it's something that puts it in perspective, how frail the body becomes, and how
Yeah,
cautious one needs to be with things like that. Obviously, insurance comes in and took care of that because they have a nurse there. They have like a live-in nurse now that works for an insurance company, I would imagine, or
mhm.
as provided through the insurance company. And
Mhm.
but I just noticed the other day, it's like, yo, it's been months and she's still on the walker. Like
Mhm.
it wasn't a huge fall. You know what I mean? Like there's no second story. Like she just probably fell over, but not to say just not to minimize it, but just
Sure.
put in the perspective of like, the height and all. Whoa, like, she's still recovering months later. And it's like, yeah, because you're older and the body takes longer to recover, correct? Like
Mhm.
you're
Yep.
older,
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't even recover sometimes, right? Because at a certain point,
Mhm.
I think your body stops recovering from certain things at a certain age.
Yeah, it takes a lot longer, as you
Mhm,
age. Just the healing
mhm,
process just
mhm.
becomes slower. And to your point, it doesn't have to be a big fall. She
Yeah,
could have fractured
yeah.
something. She might have
Yep.
like really hit her hip. Hips are really common, or hip breaking hips are really common. And
Mm,
something else that I'm really passionate about is, she's using a walker,
yep.
and so most of the time, walkers are not set up correctly, and it's no one's fault. I think there's really a lack of information out there. There's not enough
Mhm,
people who are aware, or the PT or the doctor is just overloaded, overwhelmed. So they just kind of give them the walker, or they get a walker and then they're on their way. A walker and cane, but those also can cause falls. If they're too
mm.
low, if they have
Yeah.
carpet, if there are stairs, you would be surprised how many times, people will try to drag the walker up the stairs and down. So it's like, hello, that's a major fall waiting to happen. So
Mm,
what I like,
yeah.
one of my things to do is I can teach someone, assess the walker, how they walk with it, and then
Mhm.
fix it for them.
So they
Or
wanna continue, sorry.
I was gonna say
Mhm.
not fix, I mean, no one's broken, but, help adjust the walker
Yeah.
and teach them how to actually use the walker correctly.
So they wouldn't I would imagine they don't wanna slouch over too much, like, right, with the walker, not
Mhm.
slouching, like, straight as you can or
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I see 99% of the time is that the walker is adjusted too low.
Mhm,
So there's usually handles, that there are adjustable handles you can clip up and
mhm,
down. Most of the time, if next time anyone's out who's listening and you see an elderly with a walker, just notice, where the handles are. They're
mhm,
most likely overreaching down because the walker's
mm.
way too low. So the walker
So
needs to be up, risen up,
bueno,
so that,
están
so to your
como
point.
like that. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you wanna
not
be
slouching. Okay, gotcha.
exactly, not
Okay.
as, I think over time too, we start to hunch forward naturally
Yeah.
and kinda stay that way, but if we can have them get as tall as possible, and keeping that walker close by, then that's,
Mhm,
'cause another big thing is that they push the walker ahead. So not only is the
mm,
walker too low, they're reaching, and they're
yeah.
reaching forward, so they're pushing
Mhm,
it, so if they fall, the walker goes first and then they tumble after. There's no
mhm,
security, which is what the whole purpose of the
mhm.
walker is for.
Yeah, yeah, and wouldn't I mean, just having that imagery because I have back problems, lower back problems, like, wouldn't that also affect the back a lot? Like, you're like that, right? Wouldn't
Totally.
that would kill
Mhm.
your back, man. I have back problems, like, if I'm like that for a while, my back is killing me, my lower back, but,
Yeah.
adjustment, that's really interesting there because, I have experience with, muletas. How do you say it in English? Like, muletas?
Crutches.
Crutches, there you go, crutches.
Mhm.
I have experience with crutches, and I actually fell, like, outside my room because I had an accident a couple years ago, with one of my feet, so I had to get, las crutches, las muletas,
Mhm.
and the doctor just gave them to me. You know, the nurse or the doctor, I forgot who it was. Maybe the nurse, because the doctor just comes in and does his thing, right? Like, okay, the operation was successful. We had to amputate so and so, but this one is good. You're good. You're good. Go get out of here. And the nurse, the guy, bless his heart. I guess he was new. He just like, I think these are yours, and he just gave them to me. And I'm a big boy, mind you. I'm tall, and I'm like, do I need to adjust these? And he's like, yeah, whatever you feel comfortable. And I'm like, well, you're the expert. Like, I don't know. Like, okay, there's comfort, there's comfortable, and there's right. What's right and what's wrong? I mean, I want to do it right. I don't want to, because I mean, comfortable isn't always the best way. It might
Right.
not be the right way. It might hurt me a different way. It might put a lot of stress on this foot because my left foot, I couldn't. It was out of surgery. I could not. It was just I couldn't.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I could. It was might as well not even be there. So, but the point is that he just gave it to me, and I had to figure it out. Me, my mom, my grandma had to figure out how to adjust these things. We
Mhm.
adjusted them when we thought it was correct, but obviously it wasn't because of the house. And cuando te digo que I believe in gravity because gravity believes in me. I lean to one side and I just boom, just immediately like collapse. But I don't know if because I used to play goalkeeper in football, soccer,
Mhm.
I didn't like I kind of knew how to like throw myself. So like I kind of threw myself, kind of like dove where it's like my foot wasn't hit and I landed like aquí como like on my thigh, right? And like
Mhm.
nothing was affected. But my grandma, bless her heart, was like trying to catch me. And I'm like, don't try to catch me, man. I'm like, I'm a big boy. Don't you te voy a llevar conmigo. Don't catch me. And I fell over, man. And I fell over, but I was laughing because I knew how to throw myself and it could have been much worse. And I was just kind of laughing,
Mhm.
fish on the floor, like, because it was just but it was a laughing matter because I'm a young person. I'm a young
Right.
person. And because of football, soccer, I knew how to throw myself. I knew how to fall, quote unquote. But it's something that if I hadn't known that, or if I was an older person, that nurse gave me these crutches, like, hey, you figure it out. Like,
Mhm.
okay, all right. I'll figure it out. And I did figure it out, like the hard way. But it's something that when you said that, it definitely connected in my mind. Experience of crutches.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really cool to, the more that we share it, like, to your experience is that the more people can make their own connection like that too.
Mm,
And yeah, I think for me, I feel very passionate about it, and it irks me as a kinesiologist to just I get it and I don't get it at the same time. Like, the healthcare system is there to
mm,
supposedly support us, but to that degree, we're so overloaded in the
mm,
United States that there is a sloppiness to it. They're like, "Hey, here it is. Good luck. You'll be
mm,
fine." But it's
mm,
not, and then, it's almost like a conspiracy for me. It's like, okay,
mm,
perhaps that's the point, right? So then you fall, and then you have to go to physical therapy, and then you pay the health insurance again, and then, it's a whole cyclical cycle, and then you have to get surgery, and then you get the walker, and then
yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
maybe it's my conspiracy, perhaps, but
yeah.
yeah, I think for me, that's like where I
Mm,
stepped in. I was like, what's the gap? The gap is I am an expert at spotting it,
mm,
knowing how to assess it, evaluate and adjust it, and then teaching these
mm,
people just little tricks, little tips that they're like, "Oh, I'm walking so much better and
mm,
my back doesn't hurt anymore and like I'm having less falls." And guess what? The hospital doesn't like less falls because they're not making money.
mm.
Uh, so yes, I'm always like, someone's gonna come after me for like sharing all this information,
Dude,
fine. But I'm doing what
yeah,
like needs to be said, to like wake up.
yeah.
We all really have to wake up.
Dude, wait, hold on. Do you smell that? I think you're cooking. I think you're cooking. Yeah, no, you're cooking. You're cooking because yeah. I mean, there's a whole industry. There's a whole industry. I think it might have been neglect, but still, when it's someone that is obviously because I wasn't covered too. I wasn't covered, so they're not trying to get me to come back. I'm not paying them, right? But if someone that's covered that like an older person that's already on some kind of
Mhm.
coverage plan, of course, I that's very plausible. It's very plausible and very probable. I'll stand on that. I'll stand on that with you because that's something that, if anything, in this country, it's capitalism, it's business, and if it's
Yeah.
business, if it's good, if it's money, if it makes sense, if it makes dollars, it makes right. So it's something that when you follow that paper trail and you see these things, that's very true. Because I mean, from my experience, I remember I had two friends, and one was covered and one wasn't. The one that wasn't covered, the doctor told him, "You're fine. You're good to go. Get out of here." But the one that was covered, he kept on coming back. He kept on coming back.
Interesting.
They had a similar thing going on, but because he was covered and the money was coming in, oh, I
Mhm.
think I need to see you one more time. Oh, maybe one more time. Let's see you one more time. Until finally the guy just stopped going. He's like, "Yo, I'm losing time working. I'm just it's out of my way. Like, what am I coming back here for? Like, like, am I that handsome? Like, you have to see me? Like, what is this? Like, it's like at a certain point, it's like, okay, oh, all right, we get it. Okay, we know what's going on because U.S. That's how it is. It's capitalism,
Yeah.
baby, and
Yeah.
that's something that I'm right there with you, man. I don't even think I think the term itself, conspiracy, it's skewed by idiots because a lot of idiots they hold on to dumb things, and maybe that's controlled opposition because when that term is thrown around, it just people start thinking about lizard head people, right? They think about the dumbest thing you could think about. Maybe that's the point of associating these terms with one another. But I think that's very plausible in the states.
Yeah.
That's it's not even a conspiracy. I think that's the way it is. You know.
Yeah, totally. Things to think about, hope that,
Mhm,
that your listeners kind of get a little piece of some the water drop into the ocean of like, I didn't want to think
mhm,
about it, but like maybe there's truth to that. And, for anyone who might have an older adult that they're either living with or they're taking care of or they see or, just close to,
mhm,
doesn't even have to be a family member. It's these little things that really start to expand,
mhm,
and I think my dream, my hope for the younger generation is to really start to tap into working with older adults because they're not going
mhm.
away. We're all getting there, like you said, to your
Yeah.
point.
Mhm,
I don't think I think it's yeah, I can't imagine a world where there's no elderly, there's no older adult. So if the younger generation can start to look at this really beautiful population differently and actually maybe, I think there's a lot of young dreamers out there just start implementing and helping the healthcare system change it.
mhm,
I think they really have the power to do that.
mhm,
That would be awesome. I really think that's kind of like my final note here of like just if you have like your siblings, encourage them to talk to
mhm,
a senior, encourage them to go volunteer. You guys can do it together, or
mhm,
even the lady that is recovering. Just
mhm.
seeing how she's doing and asking if she needs
Yeah,
anything because those are like
yeah,
those little moments mean the world to them, and I think we
yeah.
just really need to do that more.
Yeah, like the simplest thing that I like to do, whenever I'm at the grocery store, I keep an eye out for people that are like on walkers or something like that, and they're kind of
Hmm.
looking around because they're looking and they spot me a mile away because I'm tall. I'm like 6'2", so I'm walking around, and they look at me, and I guess I don't have the most approachable demeanor. But when I notice it, I click it. The smile, the friendliness comes out. Oh, you need help reaching so and so, and they're like, yes. As a matter of fact, I do.
Yeah.
It's like little things like that. Little things like that. Like I always make an effort whenever I'm at the grocery store, because there's always someone there, some person that maybe they're older or maybe they have a disability, something like that. And the other day, now this all sounds braggadocious because I'm telling you this, but it was just a beautiful example. It was an older lady. She was on like one of these scooters, I guess, like the store scooters,
Mhm. Mhm.
and it was like popsicles. And then she's like, "Yeah," and I asked her, "Oh, you need help, so and so?" And they're like, "Yeah, can you give us some popsicles?" And I give her a box, and then she's kind of looking at it. Ya no me quería molestar. She didn't want to bother me anymore, but I could tell that that's not the flavor she
Mhm.
wanted. I was like, "You want to check out the other ones?" And she's like, "Yeah, let me see what's in the other one."
Aw, how
And I
sweet.
show her, and I'm showing her, and I'm reading it for her. Like, okay, this is tropical. I'm like, yeah, this sounds way better. This is tropical. And so, because I already
That's
knew
so
that she
nice.
wanted the other one, I knew she wanted it, but I wanted to make it seem I'm with you on this, and you're not bothering me,
Mhm.
and get it. If you had to think twice about it, then you don't want that one. Get this one.
Right.
And,
Right.
and yeah, I gave her. I showed her the tropical, and it's like, yeah, this is way. Oh, thank you, young man. So and so. And it was cool, and like it really warms my heart doing these things because that's something that when I was younger, I mean, I still do. I always think about aging and becoming older and losing my independence as far as my
Mhm.
not needing help. And because it's like it's almost like a generational thing, right? With my father, I'm the same way.
Mhm.
I like to do things on my own, and it's like. But when I would always think about getting old, and I don't want to get old, and so. And I had a friend that always told me, like, but think about it, when you're older, you're gonna have this wisdom that you can share to other people too. That
Yeah.
you have kindness, and you always have the charisma to put a smile on someone's face, and you never lose that. So that's always something that you can always share and pass on. So no matter how old you get, and that's something that definitely changed my perspective with that. And I think as Mexicans, as rather as Native Americans, which we are too,
Mhm.
we're
Mhm.
native to the continent of America. That's something
Absolutely.
that with our elders, that we cherish them and we close, and that's a beautiful thing. And I really love that about your cause. It's a very beautiful message that I see with what you're doing.
Thank you very much.
All right, so Mercedes, thank you. I took an hour of your time. I appreciate it, and you definitely lightened me with a lot of jovial moments and also knowledge as well.
Of course. Thank you so much again as well for your time. And
Thank you.
I really hope everyone really got some knowledge and wisdom here from our young short lives.
Yeah,
But that's just a tap, just
mhm.
the beginning, So thank you.
Yeah. We're gonna do part two. Part two's on the way. All
Awesome.
right. All right. Thank you.